Have you ever felt like a complete fraud the minute you stepped outside of your comfort zone? This is called imposter syndrome, and it's something most of us feel at one point or another. And for founders, it can really hold you back from getting to your goals. But what if that tension you're feeling isn't a sign of failure? What if it's a signal that you're actually growing? I'm John Hill, aka Small Mountain, and on this previously released episode of the Founders Growth Show, I got to sit down with Dr. Corey Wilks, a clinical psychologist turned executive coach who helps entrepreneurs get past their self imposed bottlenecks. We're dismantling the starving artist myth and building a framework for founder resilience. We dig into why you should stop being creative and start being a craftsman, the permissionless approach that lands dream clients without a single warm intro, and why the most dangerous thing you can do is outsource your core craft to AI. If you're waiting for a sign, a certificate, or a guru to tell you that you're ready to lead, you're wasting time that you'll never get back. Dr. Wilks reminds us that mortality is the ultimate deadline. Don't spend yours waiting for permission that isn't coming. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Founders Growth. My name is John Hill. I'm the founder of Adapted Growth. Today on the show, we have Corey Wilks. He is the founder of Creator Alchemy. If you watched one of the earlier episodes with Dan, Corey and I know each other via Dan, so I'm excited to have him in here and kind of talk about his path. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about who he is and who he helps and kind of how he got here so the conversation makes sense. Corey, if you could take it away and give us the dime store tour, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Corey Wilks. By training, I'm a psychologist, but actually about 5 years ago, I decided to go into entrepreneurship myself without any business background, no training, no nothing. I literally had to Google how to start an LLC. And since then, I've been using my training as a psychologist to do more executive coaching and things with founders, entrepreneurs, creators. And my company is Creator Alchemy. By describing how I came up with the name will kind of tell you everything about as far as what I do. So to me, a creator, like if you create something, you are a creator to me. So creator doesn't just mean a content creator, an influencer, a social media celebrity, anything like that. If you're a marketer, if you're an artist, right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you create something of value, you're a creator to me. I really like the symbolism of alchemy as far as how can you actualize your own potential, right? How can you go through a transformative process to become the best version of yourself? So, Creator Alchemy. Everything I do revolves around helping people make the most of their time, build the business only they can build, live a life of freedom and fulfillment based on their own definition of those things. And I do that through my coaching, through my newsletter, my podcast, my community, all of that. And it's all under the umbrella of Creator Alchemy.
Man, I love that. And I think there's 3 days of topics just right in that little thing that you just talked about there, right? Because I, for a long time, I was kind of stuck on, I'm not a creative person because I don't really have much of an artistic lane, right? And if I continue to hold it like that, I wouldn't be this guy who does this thing now. I wouldn't have a book. I wouldn't have some of these things, right? Is that where most people, just jumping right in, is that where most people get caught? Is it this weird entanglement of artistic drive as well as creative drive, and most people need to kind of unpack that? Or is that just like a weird nuance that like I was stuck in?
As far as what? As far as building your own business or what?
I got really lucky in the fact that my old business partner was very much an art guy. And for him, business was his artistic output, right? And so he was always talking about creativity and it's okay to be creative in the business lane. And if business is your output, like business can be art, right? But you got to kind of treat it a little bit differently than just art for the sake of art because it's for commerce and stuff. And all of that stuff really, I think, was important to me because I was stuck on, well, I can't think of anything new, right? Is very stuck on if it's not new, it's not creative, and I can't come up with anything new, so I'm just not artistic. But I am creative in my work lane. The content that I make, the questions that I ask, the frameworks that I build to kind of help people do that. But whenever I was tied up with like artistry is creativity, I didn't really have any room to just kind of unleash this side for myself. Things got a lot better when I disentangled these two things. Does that happen a lot when you're talking with people?
Yeah, so I think one thing that trips up a lot of people when they go into creative industries, right? So if you have a content driven business, so if you
Mhm.
use content for like content marketing, so you're not necessarily trying to be, again, like an influencer or some sort of celebrity, but you're trying to showcase thought leadership through pieces of content. This podcast would be an example of that, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people, when they think about that, they do think too much about the art side of it. And they say, well, I'm not an artistic person based on my limited definition of those people who like go to art galleries with scarves and berets and like swivel wine glasses and shit, right? Well, I'm not that person and I can't, wax poetic about, Rene Girard's theory of mimetic desire and how that relates to postmodernism, whatever the fuck that even means. It's like, oh, well, I'm not that person. Therefore, I must not be creative. I must not be artistic. Rather than getting caught up in all that, I think about it much more as craftsmanship. What
Mhm.
craft do I want to develop? Because public speaking, it may not necessarily sound creative or artistic, but it is a craft. And there's
Absolutely.
definitely and there's artistry and creativity within it for sure. But I like to look at it much more as craftsmanship because craftsmanship you understand like, oh, this is a thing that I'm going to suck at it first, but over time I will pursue mastery. I may never achieve true mastery, but I will pursue mastery. And in that pursuit, I will achieve excellence. So I look at things as a craft. And what do I want to become a craftsman of?
Mhm.
Is it selling? Is it storytelling? Is it writing? Whatever. Writing fiction versus nonfiction, all that. What crafts do I want to develop and how do I develop them? That for me helps me bypass all that shit around artistry and creativity most of the time.
I love that. I've not ever really thought about it like the with the labels that you're talking about, but I I kind of have this inherent belief that there's depth in everything, right? There is craft level thinking to anything, right? We both know Dan, he's a craftsman around stories and video. I think sales is a craft, right? But this path of me being a founder, and I never really thought about it like this. It's like, okay, I think I need to go get good at that. Like, not am I good at that? How can I go get good at that? Right. And that's led to me spending a lot of time like learning about things that normal, like kind of not normal for salespeople, right? But like brand and marketing and different things like that, and that's made me better as a salesperson, right, as a founder and stuff, but I never because I kinda think there's craft in everything that you dive into, I kinda was just maybe assuming that most other people had that perspective. Is that's probably a flawed perspective, I probably shouldn't be holding it like that.
Well, that and let's take a super simple example. Let's say you want to get into drawing or painting. What a lot of people do is they start and they're like, "Oh, I'm not naturally talented, therefore this isn't for me."
Yeah,
And like some people may have a natural proclivity toward doing certain things and they may learn faster, but it's still a craft. Like no matter who you know, with exceedingly rare exceptions, nobody you know who is great started great, but they
yeah,
treated it like a craft. And over time, that is how they developed it. So the my main guy who has done most of my tattoos. So like I don't know if people can see or not if you're watching, but like most of my tattoos are by a guy. Oh, there's the Phoenix. Um, he goes by Warley. He he's a phenomenal tattoo artist, and Warley owns his own tattoo shop. And so with traditional tattoo shops, you'll have apprentices and things, right? So I was talking to him about like, what is the process of you training these people? He's like, well, one of my apprentices right now, he has no innate artistic ability. So what I have him do is I will have him pick up a tattoo magazine and draw every single one of the tattoos in the magazine. And he's like, and he will do that for months and months and months because one thing you just innately develop is, oh, tigers have this many teeth because you've drawn so many like tiger tattoos, you learn, oh, they have this many teeth. Oh, this is how I do this style versus that style. He's like, it's just repetition. It is a craft. You just like, he's like, there's no shortcuts. You just have to take a tattoo magazine and draw every single one over and over for months. He's like, that is the first thing I have my apprentices do. And like, and Worley, like he went to college for like drawing or whatever his actual, like he's got a college degree in like creative stuff,
Mhm.
and then moved to, entrepreneurship, owning his own tattoo shop. But that's how he trains his apprentices. So it's like he can take somebody with no actual like raw talent and turn them into an incredible tattoo artist just with his own designed curriculum. So again, like seeing it as, oh, this is a craft. What discrete skills do I currently lack that I need to focus on in order to improve my craft?
I like, man, I it's weird because I am this person in the lanes that I have proven out that just by showing up with beginner's mind and white belt mentality, to use a martial arts label and everything, gets me there. But I still have these areas to where I kind of don't believe that I can like just labor my way up to a tier in drawing. This is so like I love this. Drawing has always been one of those things of like, I'm just never going to be good at it, kind of thing. Now, I am this person who's pushed myself to go get good at other things that I've not naturally been good at and everything. But it's also having that curriculum, having that path, I think is a major part to it, right? And there's a lot of people, right? The space is flooded with consultants and coaches and people who don't have a curriculum, they don't have a rubric, they don't have a way, a manner, a method, and it kind of ruins it for people that do have a manner, a plan, a method, and stuff like that. Um, that's just fascinating to me, that the idea that a tattoo artist can show up with just a love of tattoo and still get to that tier of being like an artist. Like, and there's a plan and a way of making that happen consistently. That Oh, that might have just made my day, honestly. That is so freaking cool. Okay, I have a d I'm changing topics wildly because I'm curious. You spend all this time in school, okay? You have the degree, you have all the letters and everything else like this. Did you have a little bit of imposter syndrome, head trash, limiting belief, however you wanna label that, about going out as an entrepreneur? Did you feel any compulsion, any kind of steerage towards academia? Like, did you have to fight through that at all?
So I love teaching, but I hate academia. So I have learned other ways of teaching sort of on my terms.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but ironically, I was invited to teach at my alma mater to teach a seminar for the other doc students right now on personal branding and like building IP and stuff. But I get to do it my way, so
I love that.
it's different. But when I was in grad school, so I spent 12 plus years in college in total with everything to get my bachelor's, master's, doctorate, all that shit. At one point in grad school, we did this homeless outreach event. So again, I was going to, my degree is in clinical psychology. So I focus on doing therapy, right?
Mhm.
So we did this homeless outreach event in December in West Virginia, in rural Appalachia. So us, the schools of pharmacy, nursing, medicine, a bunch of other schools, we got together and we provided services for people experiencing homelessness in December. So it's super fucking cold, sub-zero temperatures, like
Yeah.
sub-freezing temperatures rather, you could die. So I went in and I was like, okay, so these people are getting prescriptions, they're getting clothing, they're getting medical checkups. What the fuck am I here to do? Because I was like, these people don't need smoking cessation techniques. They don't need deep breathing techniques. Like they're fighting for their lives living under a bridge in
Yeah.
sub-freezing temperatures. What am I doing
Where's the
here?
value, if you will?
Yeah. So I went up to two of my supervisors who between them had like 50 years of experience. I was like, hey, when does this feeling like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing go away? And they're like, we'll let you know. Meaning, even they at the top of their field, decades of experience, still felt that of like, I don't belong here. I don't know what I'm doing. And obviously,
Yeah.
we provided a lot of help with various other things. But from that moment, I have never experienced imposter syndrome again. Rather, I've never labeled it imposter syndrome again. So now I see it as there is a tension we all feel. So imposter syndrome fundamentally is a belief that you don't belong in the room,
Mhm.
whatever that room is, right? It can be a virtual room, a physical one, a conceptual room, right? Of like, my book doesn't belong on the shelf with these other authors, right? You talk about
Yep.
writing books and things. It's that, right? So anytime we start to enter a room we think we don't belong in, we feel this tension of, oh, I'm not supposed to go in there. They're going to judge me because everybody else in that room, they clearly belong there. I don't, right?
Mhm.
I still experience that tension, but I don't label it imposter syndrome. I label it as like this liminal tension that signifies growth of I'm entering a new room. This is me pushing my own growth edges. This is me choosing to evolve rather than stay complacent and stay small. This liminal tension, I call it, is a sign of growth. And I need to lean into this because most people feel this resistance of that tension and they say, oh, let me back away.
Yeah.
When in actuality, that tension is a signal of like, hey, lean in, move forward, because this represents a new version of you, your identity, your skill set, something. This is an
Mhm.
evolution of you and who you are and what you're capable of. This is what you should lean into. So since then, like I've never had like, oh, I have imposter syndrome right now. I'm like, oh, I'm pushing my growth edges. Awesome.
Yeah. I love how because it's this question that I get now, right, from people. They're like, "Man, how do you know it's gonna be okay?" It's like, you kinda don't. I'm not immune to it. I'll have a bad day, week, month, quarter, or whatever, and I'll have a like, is this really worth it? Right? Like, am I lying to myself and everything else like that? And so, to me, it's now a signal. Now it's an indication that like maybe something is not aligned, or I need to go check my work. I need to go check in with my clients. I need to go check in with my pipeline and stuff like this. And so, whenever people ask me the question, I try to like make sure that I'm going slow enough to where I'm like, hey, because it's super easy to be like, ah, right, and just kind of gloss over it and not pay it the due duty that it's there. But if this is like a new idea, if you've never had to push through discomfort before, it feels like game ending times, you know? You just have to get and this is most generic advice. When you get used to pushing through discomfort, you just get better at doing it and better at doing it. You normalize it, right? It just becomes that it still sucks. I don't love it, right? It still shows up from time to time, but like it doesn't stop me. I just keep moving. But I've never, because I've been doing this for so long and have been in sales for longer than I've been a founder, right? I've kind of forgotten what it's like to have that moment to where like every fiber of your being is like screaming that like this ain't it, and still having to like choose that one thread that is like maybe this could be it, and choosing to lean into that whenever the whole world is telling you not to. How do you work with people when they're in that situation where everything is screaming no, but it's largely because they have built the calculations badly? They don't know enough. They don't have the actual experience to like actually have the right view of the situation.
So a lot of times that'll depend on sort of their background. So like for example, like using me as an example, going through academia, doing all that,
Mhm.
you are trained to, even though like in my program, like you're trained as a generalist, so you're trained to be able to handle a bunch of things, you're actually still kind of funneled into specializing in something. So once you develop expertise or craftsmanship in one thing, and the narrative around you is pick one thing and do that one thing, and then you decide to go into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship isn't one thing. Entrepreneurship is 100 different things, right? Because, oh, I want to, start my own business. Okay. Do you know how to deal with taxes? Do you know how to deal with, spinning up a business, sales, copywriting, marketing, offer creation, right? Content marketing itself. Like, like each of these are completely different things. And even within those, there are dozens and dozens of subsets. So then you go from this very narrow lane, this comfort zone of when I'm in this lane, I'm awesome. This is my domain. I am a full expert in this thing, whatever it is. But in order for me to go over here, I effectively lose all of the comfort of my expertise because I'm entering a new domain that I am completely new in. And that's a really, really hard shift for people. It's almost like a sunk cost fallacy kind of thing of like, I've
Hmm.
spent so long doing this over here. If I go over here, doesn't that mean I'm throwing all of this away?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So and it's also like all the uncertainty of, but this isn't guaranteed. This over
Yeah.
here is. If I stay in this lane, even if it's miserable and unfulfilling or I'm burning out, I can anticipate what's going to happen. But in business, you can't really anticipate what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you can prepare, you can plan, you can focus on being adaptable and resilient, but you like at any given time, some macroeconomic thing could happen that has nothing to do with you or your actual abilities,
Mhm.
but can just crater your revenue. And you're like, "Oh, fuck, this is me. Like, it's my fault." It's like, you can do everything right, and some shit out of your control can affect your business. And you have to learn to see that of like, "Oh,
Yep.
I couldn't have anticipated this," black swan kind of stuff. I couldn't have anticipated this necessarily. I What do I do now? Right? What is within my control? What's without my control? All that.
Mhm.
So there's a combination of sunk cost fallacy when you try to do something new, but also all of the fear and the uncertainty of I don't know what will happen if I give this my all, if I go into this, because there's not a script. This isn't a
Yeah.
color by number thing. Regular jobs, as long as I don't get fired, I get my 3% raise. As long as I tick off certain boxes, I get tenure or I get the promotion. And then in
Mhm.
25 years, I can retire. And then I'll put that's all predetermined as long as you stay in that slipstream.
Yep.
Business, it's like, well, what my business is this year, I could either completely pivot my business, I could spin it down and start another one. Like I know some entrepreneurs, like some founders that in the 5 years I've been in business, they founded 15 companies,
Oh, yeah. I know those
but
people too.
13 of them never worked. Nobody ever heard of them for more than the 6 weeks they posted about on LinkedIn. And then
Yep.
they started a new one,
Mhm.
right? That's business a lot of times. And that
Yeah.
you have to you have to have such a high risk tolerance
Yes.
and such a just an acceptance of the adventure that it is going to be in order to actually stay in this.
I love the concept of risk tolerance, right? Because, coming from sales and then finally getting some really good sales coaching, right? I mean, sales is a game of risk, and sometimes if you just follow the instructions of your leadership, of your boss and stuff like this, you can still miss the performance requirements output and then be out of town on a rail. And so salespeople always kind of have to do this thing of like, okay, do I do it their way or do I do it my way? And there's always this kind of internal fight, right? Coming to entrepreneurship from a non-growth oriented space, right? Academia, psychology, and everything. How did you I don't even know how to ask this question the right way. How'd you get to the place to where you were understanding of the risk that you were taking? Because I think a lot of people don't really weigh that risk very well when they start because they don't know how to sell, they don't know how to market. It's all hopes and dreams and product thinking and what's the movie Field of Dreams? Just build it and they will come kind of situation, and it never goes that way. Like, were you were you eyes wide open when you were coming into this as a founder, or did you have some kind of rose tinted glasses? You had to figure it out on the path. How'd you do that?
So in my regular job, I was at the top of my field in that I was a doctoral level clinical psychologist specializing in addiction treatment, working in integrated primary care in rural Appalachia. All that means is I was working in a high need area. I was like the only two people above me were my two bosses.
Mhm.
I was paid the most other than my two bosses. Would have gotten paid more, but they sucked at haggling and negotiating. So, like, literally, the COO was like, "You made a great case, but I can't pay you more than your two bosses." I'm like, "Fuck!" They didn't read the business books I read, but it was a whole thing. Like, they capped my salary, whatever. So, I was at the top of my field again. Like, addiction is rampant in the areas where I was working.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, I have supreme job security. I'm set. I'm really good at what I do. I'm good. And then I negotiated a remote telehealth position. So basically, I moved, but I stayed at the same company.
Mhm.
Well, during COVID, my company at one point forced everybody to come back into the clinics. So I got an email from my boss, the COO, and she was like, "Hey, everybody loves you, coworkers love you, patients love you. You do a great job. You're fired because you are remote, and we are forcing everybody to come back into the clinic. So this is your 30 days notice." So I had 30 days notice and 3 paychecks worth of runway because like I wasn't anticipating getting
Yeah,
fired. So
exactly.
I
Yeah.
didn't have like a huge nest egg or anything. I wasn't
Mhm.
planning. I didn't have a side hustle yet. Like I was just doing this and on the side, kind of reading books on building a business and on the craft of writing, things like that.
Okay.
Listening to a couple podcasts and things. But that was it. I really hadn't done anything yet. Um,
So
Long
pausing
story
for just
short,
a second, if I
yeah.
could, right? Were you I think that season of life where, you're learning and improving and, kind of maybe thinking about it and stuff, like, you said you weren't running a side hustle. Were you thinking that, like, eventually Corey's gonna be a guy who has a side hustle, like, runs a practice? Like, was it in the crosshairs for you?
I effectively had a 5-year plan of in 5 years, then I will start doing this
Okay.
because like most real experts don't talk to a lay audience. Like, right. Like if you want like real expertise with psychology, you got to like find a journal article that's full of jargon and super expensive.
Mhm.
Nobody understands that shit. You got to maybe find one in like locked away in the ivory towers of academia or some shit. So like most expertise around psychology is inaccessible for most people. But the people who typically talk about psychology who are charismatic are charlatans, right? Like they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They just read a couple books and are like, hey, let me tell you about all the psychology. Like, you actually don't know what you're talking about, but regular people don't know enough to know you're full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So like I wanted to be that bridge of like, let me have the expertise, but develop the charisma and the ability to like convey that to a regular, an audience of regular people. Right.
Hmm,
So that was my plan, was to be the change I wanted to see in the world, right? That
I
was my
love
plan.
that.
But it was like, oh, but that'll take a minimum of 5 years. So let me just kind of passively read some books on all of that. And then in 5 years, that's when maybe I'll feel ready to do that. Well, that email meant that my 5-year plan became my 30-day plan,
Yeah.
right? Because I had 30 days. So long story short, I couldn't find another therapy job because just the way licensure worked, I couldn't find another remote job out of that state. I
Mhm.
wasn't willing to move back, and in order for me to get licensed in the new state would have taken 4 to 6 months. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't have 4 to 6 months of runway. So it was like, I spent 12 years of my life to do therapy, and I literally can't do therapy anymore. What the fuck do I do with my life? I have 30 days to figure it out. So it was like, well, therapy's all I've ever known. I can't do that, but I do have this deep knowledge of psychology. What else can I apply that to? So, dude, like I literally Googled, how do you start an LLC? Okay. Okay, let me do that, right? And
I love that.
I did, I overpaid for whatever the service was, LegalZoom or whatever it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
and they have all the add-ons and shit. All the add-ons you don't fucking need. Like, dude, I did all that shit, right? And it was so much more complicated. Like, okay, how do I get a business bank account? Like, okay, let me go to
Mhm.
like all of that, right? And then like I started, sharing stuff on like LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, back when Twitter was Twitter and not X. And I ended up meeting up one of the guys named Nick Wignall. Nick's awesome. Nick was big on Medium. He's a psychologist who also talked about like self-help stuff. Nick was on Medium, and on Medium he had like 200,000 followers. But I
Wow.
found him on Twitter and he had like 2,000. I was like, oh, Nick will be way easier to hit up on Twitter. It's just, sort of like third door kind of shit.
Yep.
So I hit him up there. I was like, hey man, similar journey. I'm just starting out. Any tips you have, would appreciate them. Just wanted to connect because I love your work. And he was super helpful. But one of the questions I asked Nick was like, okay, how do I start a WordPress site? Like, I don't know how to make a website. What is this? So like
Mhm.
Nick was like, here are some templates. Here are some free templates to get you started. Here are the ones that I used early on. Right. That was how little I knew. Cause like I grew
Wow.
up on food stamps and public housing as a kid. Like I grew up a poor kid. And when I
Yeah.
went to school, all I ever studied was psychology. So I was this doctoral level psychologist, but like I knew no entrepreneurs. I didn't know how to do anything with business at all. I had no connections and I had no social media presence.
Wow.
But over the 5 years, putting myself and my ideas out there, legitimately connect with people, not just like, shitty like networking, but like actually getting to know people, building
Mhm.
relationships and friendships, and just constantly, voraciously, obsessively learning about the craft. That's
Yes.
what I've done.
Okay. Man, okay. When I'm having this moment of appreciation of just, like, I'd worked in web a little bit. I was this very technical person, like, I knew some entrepreneurs, but the thing that I tell everybody, right, and I'm reminded so cleanly and clearly right here, is that if I had not worked back to back with my business partner who was an entrepreneur, I wouldn't know what the business looked like, and I would still probably be thinking that you gotta be like Mark Zuckerberg or else you're not really an entrepreneur, right? And, like, holding that label at such a sky high definition that is not true and not valid, but it creates a lot of room to not take any action, you know? Um, But, like I had a lot of I had a lot of examples, right? Whenever I started to go kind of take matters into my own hands, like I got to work with my business partner for a while and network and meet a bunch of people. And I'm like, this really isn't even all that hard, right? I could probably do better at this than all these other people who are just scrambling and can't seem to tie 2 days of consistency together. But if I'd not had the example, there's no way I would have ever taken the jump. Interesting. So, okay, I love the idea, like just a weird thing here. I love the idea of not reaching out to him on the platform where he's huge and having a little bit of ingenuity of going over to the platform where he's not as big and making your ask there. That is such squarely a salesperson's ingenuity, like earning the response, really being thoughtful and careful and stuff like that. Where does that come from for you? Because most people, whenever I'm like, hey, go in the side door, don't go in the front door, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of pushback if they don't come from sales. Was that your psychology background?
A little bit, but so one of my favorite writers is Ryan Holiday.
Same.
One of his books, The Obstacles Away. So in The Obstacles Away,
Mm,
he shares a story about bananas and like this. Basically, I'll try to condense as much as I can. There is this lot of land that two different entrepreneurs wanted to like grow banana trees and shit. One was like the super small, like solopreneur kind of person, didn't have a big budget. And the other was this major company. Well, the issue was two people claimed to be the deed owners of the land.
hmm,
So the company was like, the big company was like, oh, we're going to spend all this money, like doing deep research on like records to figure out who actually is the true deed holder so that then we can put a bid in on it with them. Well, the solo guy, he was like, I don't have the budget or the team to do all that.
yeah.
But then he was like, my goal isn't to figure out who owns the correct deed. My goal is to own the deed.
Mhm.
He was like, so I just bought the deed from both of those people. It doesn't matter if one was lying because as long as I buy both, I am guaranteed to have the correct one. So while this company was spending all these resources trying to just brute force this thing, the solo guy was like, okay, but what's my actual goal here?
Yep.
That story has stuck with me ever since. Of like anytime I'm like, what is my goal? Like I don't want to get so caught up in tactics and strategies that I overlook the goal. What is
Mhm.
my goal? So like with Nick, my goal was how do I establish a relationship with this guy who has been an inspiration to me? Okay, what is the path of least resistance to do that?
Yeah. Man, I dude, much respect because I think uh, I think a lot of people get stuck on prim proper stuff, right? And it leads to some of the hurdles where people get caught up, I shouldn't have to sell it, I shouldn't have to market or talk about it in any other way other than the way that I want to talk about it, which just creates a lot of room to fail, right? Um when so fast forwarding now, talking about content and trying to help people connect is really what it comes down to. Like to me, content is this really beautiful opportunity to kind of show what you do, show how you do it and everything, right? And it takes a long time, I think, for people to create content that is actually theirs versus that kind of stuffed shirt. I'm gonna go look great on LinkedIn. I'm going to the networking meeting and I'm gonna do really great. How have you gotten better at getting people past that frictionful step of like trying to be perfect when they're new to content?
Nothing in life is perfect,
Yeah.
right? So perfectionism is a super common thing. My
Mhm.
issue with perfectionism is because like, oh, I really care. Like I have a high bar for quality. You're bullshitting yourself. Everybody's got a high bar for quality. Everybody has high expectations of themselves. Okay. It's not perfectionism. You are straight up bullshitting yourself because you're saying until this is perfect, I can't put it out there.
Yes.
Well, you will never put it out there because it will
Mhm.
never be perfect, right? Perfection is unattainable, which means that perfectionism is expecting yourself to attain the unattainable. But beyond that, people are not perfect, which means we do not connect to perfection. So when you put out this air of perfection, you're not going to connect with people. That's
Yeah.
not what people will resonate with. Versus when you share imperfections, and I don't mean like trauma dumping or some shit, but if you share your imperfections, that's what people connect to, right? So for example, one of my quote unquote imperfections is that I grew up poor. when I talk about growing up as a poor kid, food stamps, public housing, free school lunches, whatever, there's a large number of people who immediately connect with me over that shared, again, in air quotes, imperfection.
100%. Yeah.
Or if I talk about, my accent or growing up in Appalachia, some people may say that that is an imperfection, right? Because they're all, no, you can't sound country, you can't sound like a redneck, like you have to like, fucking the Mideast news anchor accent shit, right? And it's like, if I share my accent, if I share some of my background, that is a shared imperfection that people will resonate with, right?
100%.
And even if they're not from Appalachia, right? Like you can be from anywhere, right? Like, fucking Germans would be like, oh, I get that. Cause like I let my accent come out, right?
Yes. It's a shared experience with like a different version, I think, right? But like that shared experience, oh man, like when we can just be okay with it.
That and like, so I write under my name for everything.
Same.
Early on, I started trying to write under like a business name, a company
Oh
name.
yeah, and it's like the royal we shit and everything else.
Yeah.
We take this data-driven approach,
Yeah.
and then like I remember I get to work with my wife, which is one of the coolest things about doing this thing that I'm on. And she goes, "Who's this we?"
Who the fuck
And I was
is
like,
we? Yeah.
well, eventually when we're bigger and we've got team and she's like, oh, so there is no we, it's just you. Like what if we, and it was so helpful, right? Because like you just kind of get stuck in these like weird eddies of reading other people's content and following other people's paths and stuff. And it was so delightful because until that and if anyone else had come up and been like, who's we? I'd have been like, shut up, right? I'd have been like, don't limit my dreams. I'd have been this weird, petulant asshole like in that moment. But she's like, who's we? And I couldn't hide from it. I couldn't deflect it. I couldn't do anything. And I was like, you're right. Like if I want to be real with people, they're going to be working with me. There is no we at this stage. So why am I obfuscating, right? Who am I trying to protect? It's wild.
That and like for me, I was like, oh, here's something I want to say, but I have to like shoehorn it in through the lens of how this company might say it. And that got in the way so much. She was like, oh, it has to have this professional veneer. And then I was like, I'm just going to write under my name.
Yep.
In general, these are the topics I talk about because these are the topics I'm most obsessed with. Psychology of success, navigating fear, burnout, limiting beliefs, these types of things, unlocking creativity. These are things I naturally am drawn to and I love to talk about and I love to help, unlock for people. But if I wanted to talk about jujitsu or if I wanted to like talk about like some other interest I have, like I can, one, because the people who follow me are generally interested in the same things I'm interested in. So it's that sort of thing of like, hey, part of this, yes, you followed me for the value I provide, but sometimes you follow me to get to know me a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So rather than try to like do all this bullshit and like have this veneer of like, oh, well, this is the personal brand I'm trying to build. And like these are the hex codes I've used. And this is the font I use. And like, okay, like let me do all this shit. Like none of that fucking matters. And it's like, okay, what, MVP, what's the MVP? Like just, templates of shit I can make. In general, I like blue. So like, let me like make my brand color blue. Okay. Let me just keep it simple. But it's this whole thing of like, let me just say what I have to say and say it my way, because that removes as much friction in this process as possible. Because if I had this idea and it's like, okay, well, how do I say it as a company? How do I say it as the version I think people are expecting from me? You're adding so much extra friction and eventually you lose the essence of that thing you're trying to share with the world because you took yourself out of it. So now it doesn't feel authentic because it isn't authentic because you aren't in that thing. So that's my whole thing is like, how can you show up fully? How can you embrace your own authenticity, which includes imperfections, but how can you do the thing only you can do in the way only you can do it?
Man, I love that. Whenever I was a stock sales rep and I was a very quiet, introverted guy. I have a stutter, I'm not this gregarious, normal kind of salesperson and everything. And I would hear advice about be yourself. And I'd be like, no, nah. And then whenever I finally hit a tipping point of just like, what happens if I'm just me? This very odd guy who's very passionate about the things I'm passionate about and not care at all about the things that I don't care about and stop trying to care about those things, that finally led to people like actually having a connection with me as an individual, right? Which obviously is helpful. And I think if you're a consultant or a coach, or most of your work is one to one with clients, your content has got to get to that level, or else they don't know who they're dealing with. And then it feels to them like you're just there to close them. You're just there to sell them, right? And this is the bane of most salespeople, because they don't let enough of their own humanity into their conversations and into how they do the job. Everyone just kind of feels like they're alone on Sales Island with Sam, and it's his first day as a salesperson, and like they just don't want to be there. But when you can bring I call it bringing your whole ass self to work, right? When you bring your whole ass self to the job, right? Whether it's a salesperson or a founder or marketing or anything else, my best content has been around jujitsu. It's been around my stutter. It's been around studying philosophy. It's about these things that I was terrified to talk about whenever I first started to write on LinkedIn, because that human connection. I literally had a guy one time, right? We hit the call and he goes, "Hey, real quick, you're the martial arts guy, right?" And I was like, "Well, I think there's a lot of us. Can you give me some more information?" He was like, "You talk about kung fu and jujitsu?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do talk about those things. Why?" And he goes, "I was going to ghost you. And then I remembered that you talked about these things, and I wouldn't do that to someone who trains." And I was like, it was this very first moment of just like, oh, it really works, right? And so then it was just permission almost to like, what other weirdness that makes me me can I bring into my content, into to like, how can I flesh out the picture in the most meaningful way possible before the call, before the moment of pressure of like, hey, give me money to help you fix this problem that you want fixed, and it's that permission is very, very interesting. I think some people need a framework, they need a path, they need a way, they need a method, but I think most people just need permission. Has that been your experience with like getting people to lean into content and putting themselves out there? Have you ever felt like a complete fraud the minute you stepped outside of your comfort zone? This is called imposter syndrome, and it's something most of us feel at one point or another. And for founders, it can really hold you back from getting to your goals. But what if that tension you're feeling isn't a sign of failure? What if it's a signal that you're actually growing? I'm John Hill, aka Small Mountain, and on this previously released episode of the Founders Growth Show, I got to sit down with Dr. Corey Wilks, a clinical psychologist turned executive coach who helps entrepreneurs get past their self-imposed bottlenecks. We're dismantling the starving artist myth and building a framework for founder resilience. We dig into why you should stop being creative and start being a craftsman, the permissionless approach that lands dream clients without a single warm intro, and why the most dangerous thing you can do is outsource your core craft to AI. If you're waiting for a sign, a certificate, or a guru to tell you that you're ready to lead, you're wasting time that you'll never get back. Dr. Wilks reminds us that mortality is the ultimate deadline. Don't spend yours waiting for permission that isn't coming. Let's get into it.
So the permission you are waiting for will never come, because the
Oh,
permission you're waiting for, and it sounds like super like woo woo
no,
spiritual, but
like it's
the
real as shit. Like that may be the most realist thing you say on this thing, right? And you said real stuff this entire time, but it's like no one is coming to give you permission, and no one's going to save you for trying,
but it's like the permission you're waiting for has to come from within. And again, like that sounds like some
Absolutely.
fortune cookie shit, but it's true. Like there, one of my friends, his name's Jay Yang. He's got this book, You Can Just Do Things. Dude, I fucking love Jay. I
What
fucking
a
love Jay.
great title. You can just
Yeah,
do
it's
things.
the power of permissionless action. So I rep Jay in his book all the time. So like Jay now, I think
I'm
he's like
writing that
19.
down.
Yeah, Jay, and this is self-published too. So man of his word, he didn't wait for permission from a traditional publishing house. He did this on his own.
Yeah.
So Jay, I think currently is 19. Before he graduated high school, he had already interned at Beehive, like the newsletter company.
Yeah.
He was working for Noah Kagan,
I know Noah
founder of
Kagan.
AppSumo,
Yeah,
like
I
80
know Noah
plus million
Kagan.
in revenue a year. Helped Noah on his best-selling book, $1 Million Weekend or whatever
Yeah,
it was.
$1 Million Weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay was part of the team that helped promote that and things. And now Jay is working for Alex and Layla Hormozy, right?
Hmm.
Helping them with like growth and shit. So like,
Mhm.
and again, Jay's 19 years old. Okay. The way that Jay has been able to do all this At one point, Jay saw like his team, their growth and what they were doing with social media and the newsletter and things. And he was like, hey, I actually, I fuck with growth. This is what I've done for my own channels and for across social media. He was
Mhm.
like, here's what I see you're currently doing. Here is what I would do differently to help you grow more. Step by, like, just laid it out, laid all of it out, like kept no secrets. Here's exactly the play by play of what I would do. He was like, and at the end, because he sent him like a 20, 30 slide deck of all of this.
Mhm.
He was like, here are like 5 social media posts locked and loaded, ready to go. All you have to do is copy, paste, and hit publish. I made them for you free of charge. If they work awesome, hit me up. If not, no worries. So Jay did all of this and then like sent it to them. And like the issue a lot of people do is they're waiting for permission. Like we've all seen of like somebody shoots you a DM like, hey, I've got an idea. Mind if I run it by you? You're asking for permission. Or like,
Mhm.
hey, would you like to set up a call to do this thing? Or like, hey, I made this video to help you increase your sales and hit 10K MRR or whatever.
Mhm.
Mind if I send over my ideas? You are asking permission. You are blowing the one chance you had, but also you're not demonstrating any expertise or trust. When Jay was like, here's everything, Noah and his team could read through and be like, oh, this kid's legit. He
Mhm.
knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Sure. And Jay, he's done that time and time and time again. Jay lives by this permissionless approach. I think that too many of us, because we've, whether it's culture, conditioning, whatever, we are raised to wait for permission, right? Even in school, you had to wait for permission to go take a
Yep.
piss. We're like, hey, teacher, can I go to the bathroom? And they could legitimately say no sometimes, which is
Mhm.
insane, right? We're constantly waiting for permission from parents, from friends, from bosses, from whoever. So then in entrepreneurship, you're like, I can't do this. Somebody's got to tell me I'm good enough to do this. Somebody's got to tell me I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to tell me I'm allowed to make a pivot, or that I can start this business, or I can change this business, or I can embrace my authenticity instead of trying to be this public persona, this weird, perfect thing.
Mhm.
And you're constantly waiting for permission to do the thing you want to do.
Yep.
And the reason you keep waiting is nobody is sitting around being like, I bet John's waiting for permission to do that thing. I should hit John up and tell him, hey, buddy, that's a good idea. Go
Yep.
ahead. Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, so it's interesting because I'm very permission driven in my interactions with others, right? And I teach a very permission driven forward kind of like sales methodology, right? Because, when you can set an agenda that gets buy-in and everything, you don't have to be as salesy and everything else like this on the backside. But and I was about to be like, well, no, like, hold on a second, but in my actions, like in my actual core actions, in the ways that I run my business, the way that I plan my days, the way that I take my actions and everything, I don't wait for permission, right? So it is this thing that I do in my conversations and in my attempts to collaborate better with others, right? Because like when you decide to have a team, I think there is another layer of this of like you need to be, a little bit more buy-in seeking, alignment seeking and stuff like that. But no one's going to tell me when to pivot my business. Like I'm going to look at the signals. I'm going to do like no one gave me permission to write a book, right? Like no one even told me that it was going to be worthwhile. I just decided to go and try and just started to have a daily count of 1,500 words. And okay, now what? Now what? Now what? So it's fascinating because like I think of myself as this very like I'm not a big personality in the way that I think of big personalities, right? I'm not going for people's knees. I'm not trying to cut people out or anything else like this, but I'm also not waiting for permission. You know what I'm saying? And like it's weird I'm having this moment of like a little bit of indignation, right? Like that that someone should come tell me what to do with my business and stuff like this. Fascinating.
Well, so, Seth Godin, Permission Marketing, right? It's
Yeah.
one of the classic books. So permission is permission, or maybe a different way to look at it, consent is an
Mhm.
important piece when there's
Oh,
another person
huge.
involved.
Permission and consent. I love that split of the onion, man, because like as a sales professional, nothing tilts me more than just that launch into the 3-minute pitch to where like there's not even a question being asked. Like you're not even good at this yet. Like, oh my gosh,
Like one of the things that, Seth Godin would talk about is, like a pop-up or a lead magnet, right? Like that is effectively asking permission to contact that person again and again.
Mhm.
Well, when you're involving another person, that can be important, right? Especially if you doing it would be some sort of, burden to them or annoyance to them, right? Or
Yep.
especially if it can harm your reputation by doing that.
Yep.
Right. Again, like the DMs I get all the time, or the message, the emails I get
Mhm.
is like, hey, here's how I could, I'd love to help you. Well, the common one right now is like, I could help you get 50 to 60, like book 50 to 60 calls a month. I was like, motherfucker, I don't want a full-time job. You have provided no value, but my ass sitting on a phone for 50, 60 fucking calls. Like
Well,
that's an obligation and a burden you're offering me. Who the fuck's saying yes to that? Okay. But and it's just like, I've
that's a
never
full-time
talked to you.
job.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
that's just so funny, man, because like I know people who would be falling over themselves to be able to afford 50 to 60. Now, here's the thing, right? They're not going to close any of that, right?
No,
Because they
that's the
don't know
point.
how to sell, they don't have systems, they don't know how to warm up cold trap. So like it's a nightmare, but like right. When you know what people are willing to buy, you can go find the line of people. You know what I'm saying? So like I don't fault those people, but most people are not even educated enough to see how much of a waste of time that's going to be. You
There's
know?
that, but it's also like, you and I have never, like, if somebody shoots me a DM like that, it's like, you and I have never talked. We have no trust, no rapport, no
No.
nothing.
Yeah.
And you are offering me something that is a terrible offer for me specifically, or like, hey, Corey, have you ever thought about turning your content into courses? And it's like,
I
that
get
proves
that
to
too.
me you've never looked at my fucking website to know what courses I have, right? And it's shit like that, okay? Versus, especially when it's just you, a permissionless approach is critical to just
Mhm.
starting. Because
Yep.
that's the biggest thing, is like, people wait for permission to start, or they
Yeah.
wait for permission to trust themselves and their own judgments. That's the biggest thing.
Mhm.
Now, yes, it can turn into like, basically asking consent to continue a relationship with somebody in some kind of endeavor, for sure. Right. But even some, like, the difference between saying, hey, I have this idea that might help your business grow. Mind if I send it over? Versus, hey, I've followed you for 6 months. You and I, we've talked in the comments back and forth. I've studied everything. Here's a playbook of how I would help you if we work together. No obligation. Just look it over. If it sounds good, would love to talk. If not, no worries.
Mhm.
That, from like a sales perspective or like an outreach perspective, is significantly stronger,
Oh, yeah.
because you're showing me how you think and how you would approach this, rather than, because again, a tactic people use is, hey, Corey, I've got some ideas, would love to send them over.
Oh,
Mind if
yeah.
I do that? But what they do is they'll send that to 100 people a day. They haven't actually made anything yet. They wait until they get a response, then they do it. That
Mhm.
is disingenuous to people who understand what you're doing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it breaks trust before the relationship even has a chance to start.
Well, and so there's that whole thing, but then there's the other thing, right? Like I got some outreach the other day, and I would love your take on this, because the guy sends me a pitch. I don't even remember what the pitch was, but it was like wild out of left field. It was something for like agency owners. I don't run a marketing agency, right? So obviously your targeting is off, you're spraying and praying, you're hoping, right? Now here's the thing. If that's the job and that's your action, just own it. But here's what this person did, and I only take offense because I am a sales professional, right? I was like, hey man, I think your targeting's a little bit off. I'm not running an agency. Like take me off your spray and pray list. And it will not spray and pray, bro. I sent this over by hand or not. You did not look closely enough to even see that I'm not running a marketing agency, and you're pitching me marketing agency stuff. And he was like, well, my fault, bro. I thought it would help. No, you didn't. And if you're going to sell like in that manner of just spray and pray, don't try to like sell anyone on your personal value. Don't put your personal value into this thing. Don't even sell yourself on the idea of like, I thought this would be helpful. No, you didn't, because you didn't do any research. Just be like, thank you. I'll take you off the list. Don't try to make it more than it is. Don't put your personal value into it, so that way you feel affronted and mad when you get rejected. And so where I see everyone getting very stuck is well, let's do some volume. because they see that like doing it all by hand is going to be slow, it's going to take time. Like you said, it's a full-time job. So then they all want to leapfrog to these huge, massive outbound engines and the spray and pray mentality and stuff like that. Why do you think that's such the common answer for people?
Twofold. One, because I think sales gurus are teaching that in their courses.
Hmm.
Because Twitter's especially bad, which I'm not as active right now, but because it'll run in batches, right? Like, and like I can always tell when there's like a new fucking cohort of, and I don't know who is teaching this shit, but I can tell because suddenly I'm getting 10 to 20 a day of the same fucking script.
Yep.
Right.
Or you don't pay is the big one
Or you
right
don't
now,
pay,
right?
Oh my
Yeah,
God. Oh my God.
absolutely. Yeah.
But again, it's like I look at them and it's like they don't follow me. They've never interacted with me. They know nothing about me. Right. One, I think it's this like get rich quick shit that
Hmm.
some unscrupulous charlatans are selling, but it's also it's low effort. People are fucking lazy. And
Yep.
the issue is like sales is a craft. Entrepreneurship is a craft. You cannot develop a craft being lazy. And that's it. Okay. And that's again where it comes back to like treat it as a craft.
Hmm.
So many people are like, oh, I can just send out this generic, I can ask ChatGPT to put in this fucking whatever,
No,
and I'll just copy and paste this because, well, assuming a 1% conversion rate or assuming a 0.1% conversion rate, okay, that means I need to send 100. Oh, I need to send 1,000. And then
Yep.
I just, because I heard Hormozy say something fucking about volume or some shit one time out of context that I don't really remember the whole context because it was a fucking 15-second reel. Let me just send out 1,000 a day. And as long as I just close one person a week,
Yeah.
that'll be enough. And it's like,
Hope.
or rather than the spray and pray, you can fucking snipe. You'd be like, okay, let me target 5 to 10 people who have the highest likelihood of getting the most value out of the thing that I'm trying to offer, and that it would be a win-win-win. It would be a win for me because I get paid. It would be a win for them because they make money too. And it would be a win for the people they serve because they would provide a better service or be able to serve more people. That is true entrepreneurship. It is a win-win-win.
Mhm.
Okay. It is not a win-loss. It, like, contrary to popular belief, okay, the best forms of entrepreneurship, in my experience and opinion, are win-win-wins
Yeah. Mutually beneficial.
for everybody, right?
Yep.
And that's the true essence of all of this, right?
Corey,
And
if you ever decide that you're done with all of this stuff that you're doing and you just want to be a sales coach, like you're already 98% better than most of the sales coaches I've ever met, and like you don't even come from sales. Like it's just, man, it's so nice and delightful to like not talk to someone who wants to push more volume because it's the only thing they know to talk about, man. Like it's just so delightful. Like I might have to cancel all my calls for the rest of the day because this is so unexpected.
I appreciate it. But dude, like, I have studied sales and I've studied like, okay, this is what most people teach. How does this align or misalign with my own values and what I feel is a better way forward, right?
Mhm.
And it's almost like sometimes you have to learn the bad way to recognize, oh,
Oh,
that's a bad way. I don't like that,
yeah.
right? But like for me, man, I also just I enjoy the process much more of sniping, of like, here's a person I'd love to work with. What is the shortest distance to doing that?
Mhm.
So like, I'll use an example. So I coached Ali Abdaal for like 6 months a while back. So Ali Abdaal, New York Times bestselling author. I technically he wasn't that when I was coaching him. He was writing the book, but he's since become that. Major YouTuber in the productivity and like lifestyle business space. Bunch of things, millions and millions of subscribers. I watched Ali. He put out a video. It was like a 45-minute video on
Mhm.
like the 8 challenges I'm having in life and business. And I watched it and I was like, holy shit, these are a lot of the things I do in my coaching practice, like that I help people work through. So I dropped everything that day and wrote just like a raw article, didn't edit it. And it was like, hey, Ali, if you are my client, here's how I would start to tackle every single one of these. And it was this permissionless approach before I knew what a permissionless approach was.
Mhm.
I was like, let me just pretend he's a client. Here's how I would do it. And let me just give away everything.
Yep.
And it was like a 20-minute read article. It's a behemoth of an article, super raw, a terribly written article, I'm sure. Like it's because it's just like, here's what I think, here's what I would do, right? There's no fucking like sophisticated formatting and shit.
Yep.
And I published it, and on Twitter I had like maybe 500 followers. I was like, hey everybody, I don't know Ali, but Here's the context. Would love it if you could share it in the chances that he might see it if enough people shared it. People shared it. He saw it and was like, dude, this is great. Will you be my coach? And then we
Wow.
worked together for 6 months. And then, that opened up a lot of other opportunities and things too. And it was that of like, here's a person I have studied, and here is
Yeah.
a play by play of exactly how I would help them. That will get you so much. Even if you do that once a month,
Yeah.
again, even if you only do one person once a month, at the very least in a year, that's 12 people. But it's also like you have this another asset in your portfolio of thought leadership of here's how I
Mhm.
would do this, here's how this works, here's how I think about this stuff, right? Um, one of the guys I know, his name's Art LaPinch. Art, one of the things he does is around personal branding and rebranding stuff. He actually did this super deep dive about how he would rebrand this company. It was like a uh, lithium company or a lithium battery company. And he was like, look, your company's great, but the issue is you don't convey any of the value you have to people so that people would understand why to go with you versus
Mhm.
anybody else. He's like, the things you all actually do, the value you actually provide is that you can mine lithium cheaper and cleaner than anybody else, but you do not convey that. Here's
Yep.
how I would completely rebuild your company website, your branding, your messaging, your storytelling, everything to convey that. Well, the thing is even if that company didn't see it or didn't want to work with him, he now has this and he's gotten a lot of
Yep.
like other founders and CEOs, whether they have wanted to work with him or they're like, hey, if you're a company looking to rebrand around storytelling and all this other shit, hit up Art. Here's an example of how he did this.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
you remove any competition at that point because you're the only one who's doing shit like
Well, and this is fascinating because it kind of goes blatantly in a lot of the coaching that I've had to put down on my path, right? Because my coach had this thing of like no free consulting, right? And he would, don't give him anything, don't give him anything because they're going to collect your information and they're going to, and there are those people, and usually those people are not malicious. We just didn't ask enough questions to know what they were going to do with our information and like know the next steps. But now, like, I go, like, show them exactly what it's like to work with you, like, make it as clear as possible, right? And to that point, I talk about this thing, and this bothers marketers, but it really, all the introverted craftspeople love it. Meaningful friction. If it's effortless to work with you, and then you're a high accountability change maker, right? And you're in there and you're giving as good as you're getting and you're challenging them and you're actually driving, like, it's likely that a lot of people are like, man, you were so nice during the sales pro and now you're being kind of hard to do. Like, did you forget why we're here? Like, you have to show them meaningfully what that whole thing looks like so that way they have an accurate representation, because coaching is tough. You can't have that connection with everybody, in my personal opinion. And so it's like, if you don't show them who you are, they don't really know who they're going to be meeting with, right? Being served by, being helped by. And if you create that for yourself, you deserve all the churn, all the frustration, all the anxiety because all it does is all you have to do is like show the work in a meaningful way. Corey, I do think I could probably talk to you for like 3 months on just sales stuff, right? Like, I love your grip on it, yeah, as a person who comes from psychology and a person who studies it now, but I wanna respect your time, so I'm gonna move into the back part of this. I got some rapid fire questions for you.
cool. And I'm happy to come back anytime.
So, Corey, when you think about content net today, giving yourself permission, removing the fear, removing any of these things, right? What is the most important lesson you would give to a founder who's starting today?
You are going to die one day. Whatever insecurities you have, whatever self doubts you have, whatever lack of knowledge, lack of skill you have, pales in comparison to the fact that you are 100% going to die one day. What is worth your time to dedicate to? How does the insecurity of what, online trolls might say compare to the 100% guarantee of your mortality? That's it.
Man, I love that. I was trying to explain to my daughter the other day, who's all of 14 years old, the beauty of meditating on your death. Not fleeing from it, not running away from it, just looking at it honestly, right? And she, being 14, this is kind of an uncomfortable concept for her. But I was like, when I do that, when I appreciate the fact that no matter what happens, I'm going to die, it creates this room for me to want to make the most out of every moment that I have. But you have to decide this for that appreciation to show up, right? So meditate on it, plan for it, talk about it, have a will, right? Like go do all these, especially if you're a founder. Oh my God, like go document everything and make sure that everyone has a plan and a path because it is inevitable. We are going to die. So what I also love to ask in this moment is the internet, social media communities are filled with mantras, dogmatic advice, and some of it is helpful and some of it is kind of hard to hear until you go through it. What is the advice that you had to go learn for yourself the hard way because you couldn't hear it until you went and figured it out for yourself?
Wolves die in the wild, right? So like
Yep.
we all want to be the exception. We all want to be able to just like through just sheer will and personality and intelligence to just do it all ourselves, survive, thrive all alone in a vacuum. And that isn't the reality of business. The reality of and life in general, but the reality of business, you hear cliches like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know, or your network is your net worth, all those shit.
Mhm.
But the reality is, whether it is meeting people who are ahead of you who can mentor you, and I don't mean like a formal apprenticeship, but they can just like share some insights or wisdom, that is really helpful. But also just meeting other people who are at a similar stage in their journey, because when you completely doubt yourself, and again, macroeconomic conditions crippling your business, or you're new and don't know anything and nothing seems like it's working, but you don't know if it actually isn't working, or you're just too early to have hit an inflection point and you don't know whether to, pivot or persevere. You've read all the fucking books and shit and you're like, okay, the books made this sound way simpler and way less terrifying. Fuck, like I read the Lean Startup, but I don't know what the fuck I need to do right now. Like you've done all this shit, right? Having real people that you know and seeing them succeed is an example of, oh, concretely, this is possible to do. Real, real shit. It's possible to succeed as an entrepreneur. It's not a fantasy. It's not some celebrity. It isn't Mark Cuban that I follow on Blue Sky or some shit. Like I love Mark Cuban, but it's like, if you don't know Mark Cuban, he's only so inspirational.
Yep.
But the person you met, who you've talked to, you've had coffee with, you went to their house and played video games or some shit. That's the real person. Like, okay, well, I'm questioning myself right now, but I know they've done it. Awesome. And it helps anchor you in reality because you have real concrete models of this success.
Man, I have to ask you this question because we've talked about books so many times, and I normally don't break this format, but I'm just so curious. Have you read the Annie Duke books?
No. What are these?
Okay, so Annie Duke is a professional poker player, okay? But she was on a psychology path and then was dealing with anxiety and not alignment. So she has two books, okay? One of them is called Thinking in Bets, right? And it's really about not being too focused on the output, but more on the decision-making process, because poker is a game of probabilities and incomplete information. So it's more important to have good thinking processes and be divorced from the outcomes because luck is such an important factor. The secondary book, which I mean, they're both very, very, very good. The second one is about the power of quitting, right? Because most people view quitting as like failure and, all cowardice and everything else like this. But I think as a salesperson or a founder, knowing when to quit is also knowing when to pivot and knowing like how to stay ahead of these things. So, with your discussion of books, I was curious if you'd read it. Highly recommended. If you have not, I think you would geek out, especially on the second one about knowing when it's time to call it, as opposed to, lying to yourself, deceiving yourself, telling yourself that it's just a matter of time whenever you don't even know what that path looks like. So sorry to get sidetracked around there. I was just curious if you'd read it. Last question, Corey, and then I will let you go about your day. Dude, thank you so much for doing this again. This has been such a cool conversation. You've been in the game for years now, right? You've learned a lot along the way, right? And things have changed since you started, right? They've changed a lot since I've started. What do you see founders doing today that causes you concern, makes you worried they're not going to get the traction they need to stay in the game?
They are outsourcing too much to AI.
Okay. What do you like? How do you split that a little bit, right? Because that's kind of a polarizing opinion in today's age, right? So how do you cut that a little bit cleaner?
Outsource the things that you don't want to become great at. Never outsource your craft,
Hmm,
whatever that
okay.
craft is. You decide what your craft is, or the subcrafts within your overall craft. You decide what those are. Never outsource those,
I
because
love
whatever you
that.
outsource, you can't improve upon. Like, you can't improve at shit you outsource. Okay. So for example, if I want to get better at writing, saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, here's the topic I want you to write about. Here's the format. Here are, a couple points. Make it for me and make it pithy and,
Make it
quotey and
pithy.
shit. Make it pithy," right? You have forfeited the opportunity to have a rep developing your craft of writing. Okay.
I
And
love
it
that.
it it legitimately doesn't matter if the whatever slop ChatGPT or Claude shits out, if it's better than what you could create or not. That is irrelevant in the short term, because in the long term, you make enough shitty things, if you're actually iterating and shit, you will develop that craft. But
Mhm.
if you keep outsourcing it, you will never improve at that craft. Right?
Oh,
So use it, outsource it. So like editing, I suck at editing. Okay, so maybe sometimes, obviously humans are going to be better as far as like getting like a human response, because AI also has a bias to please you, right? AI is like a fucking dog, where it's just
yep,
like, oh, hey, that was really good. Oh, this is really insightful. Like, oh, this is
yep.
really good. Shut the fuck up. We need a cat AI, right? Cat of like,
We
this
need a
fucking
cat AI.
sucks. Let me put my asshole in your face. Like, we need more cat like AI. Okay. It'll
That
keep you
might be the
humble.
title of this video.
but it doesn't matter if it would put out something that is better than what you can right now, because if you have identified this is the craft I want to improve, then that
Mhm.
means you have to do it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so what I had this moment earlier this year, and I think you'll appreciate this thing. I have been on this path for 7 years now, and I had this moment earlier this year to where I kinda realized that I'm fighting the wrong battle a little bit because, I've now gotten to the place to where I'm okay with the fact that I'm a better coach and trainer than I am a salesperson, right? But that's a bit of an identity shift, because there are a whole lot of people who are like, well, if you're such a good salesperson, why are you teaching this thing? Because you got to be better at it to teach it. But we'll talk about that another time. But then I also realized that like I kind of have this weird I'll always be part of my sales function. I'll always be part of my sales function because I think it's important, right? And it's only important if that aligns with my goals. But if my goals are shifting, and they are a little bit, I want to get bigger. I want to have more coaches. I want to have more people who can represent some of the stuff that I don't have to deal with. My lane of greatness is not tied to this thing, right? So like seasons of change and, focusing on the right battle. We might just need to do a part-time on like no or part 2 on knowing when to put down some of the beliefs and the identities that have gotten you here, because one of the lines that I really like a lot is the things that gotten you here aren't going to be the things that get you there. But right time, right season matters. But Corey, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. If people want to come hang out with you, if they want to learn more about you and how you work and kind of what you offer and stuff, where should they go?
So Corey Wilks, PsyD. I am that everywhere. My doctorate is a doctor of psychology, a PsyD, PSYD. So I am Corey Wilks, PsyD. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all the places. CoreyWilksPsyD.com is my main website with all of my stuff. If for whatever reason you cannot remember that, CreatorAlchemy.com goes straight to my newsletter, so you can also do that.
Perfect. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. This has been a blast. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Dude, this is great. Like I said, I'm down to come on again anytime.
All right. We'll talk about it. Thank you.